What's up? Welcome back. Today we are in the last chapter of James, chapter 5, and the title of that text is Prayer Avails Much. Starting in verse 1. Go to now, ye rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you. Your riches are corrupted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver is cankered, and the rest of them shall be a witness against you, and shall eat your flesh as it were fire. Ye have heaped up treasure together for the last days. Verse 2 through 3. Wealth is often measured in terms of quality food, clothes, and silver and gold. Besides referring to moth-eaten clothing, the word corrupted could indicate that food is perishable and thus not a measure of lasting wealth. James's statement about gold and silver corroding is paradoxical, emphasizing that even incorruptible commodities are destined to perish. Last days emphasizes the eschatological nature of the pronouncement against greedy. Heaped or hoarded wealth will become the undoing of greedy persons. Behold, the hire of your laborers, who have reaped down your fields, which is of you kept back by fraud, crieth. And the cries of them which have reaped are entered into your ears of the Lord of Shabbat. Verse 4. In ancient times, payment for work performed was a due at the end of the workday. Greed motivated some landowners to withhold the wages. Kept back could translate it defrauded. Lord of Shabbat is an Old Testament reference to God as a warrior in 1 Chronicles 11, 4 through 9, and Isaiah 2, 12. The plight of the poor and oppressed worker is known to God. Ye have lived in pleasure on the earth and been wanton. Ye have nourished your hearts as in the day of slaughter. Verse 5. Indulging one's passion is described here as fattening of the heart. Ye have condemned and killed the just, and he doth not resist you. Verse 6. Condemned is a legal term suggesting that the wealthy took land and wages through decisions rendered in dishonest courts. The helpless poor were unable to resist. Verse 1 through 6. Oppressive landowners and people who put their trust in riches were commonly addressed in prophetic speech, including by Jesus himself in Luke 6:24. People who use their wealth to oppress others may seem to go unpunished in this lifetime, but James warns that misery shall come in the future judgment. Be patient, therefore, brethren, until the coming of the Lord. Behold, the husbandman waiteth for the precious fruit of the earth, and hath long patience for it, until he receive the early and later rain. Be ye also patient, establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord draweth near. Verse 7 through 8. In light of the certainty of God's coming judgment on the oppressors, James encouraged his audience to be patient and to wait for the Lord's coming. The phrase establish your hearts is an expansion on be patient, signifying firm resolve. Grudge not one against another, brethren, lest ye be condemned. Behold, the judge standeth before the door. Verse 9. To grudge against another constitutes being judgmental, already prohibited in chapter 4, 11 through 12. The immediacy of the Lord's return brings judgment to the person who judges, just as it does for the oppressors. Take my brethren, the prophets who have spoken in the name of the Lord, for an example of suffering, affliction, and of patience. Behold, we count them happy which endure. Ye have heard of the patience of Job, and have seen the end of the Lord, that the Lord is very pitiful and of tender mercy. 10 through 11. By suffering and patience, James means suffering with patience or patience in hardship. But above all things, my brethren, swear not, neither by heaven, neither by the earth, neither by any other oath, but let your yea be yea, and your nay be nay, lest ye fall into condemnation. Verse 12. Swear not is an exhortation to truthfulness, not a universal prohibition against oath-making. Is any among you afflicted? Let him pray. Is any merry? Let him sing psalms. Is any sick among you? Let him call for the elders of the church, and let them pray over him, anointing him with oil in the name of the Lord. And the prayer of faith shall save the sick, and the Lord shall raise him up, and if he have committed sins, they shall be forgiven him. Confess your faults one to another, and pray one for another, that ye may be healed. The effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. Elias was a man subjected to like the passions as we are, And he prayed earnestly that it might not rain. And it rained not on the earth by the space of 3 years and 6 months. And he prayed again, and the heaven gave rain, and the earth brought forth her fruit. 12 through 18. James used a series of questions followed by commands as an effective way of exhorting the congregation to prayer and worship. Afflicted in verse 13 is not a reference to physical illness. It is instead a spiritual burden caused by misfortune or poor choices. Elders should anoint any sick person with oil and pray over him. Olive oil was considered a cure-all ointment in the ancient world, but for James, the real healing power is in prayer. The prayer of faith echoes chapter 1, 5 through 8. Save refers to physical healing. The Lord shall raise him up does not indicate the death is at hand in verse 14, but the once healed by the power of God, the sick person could get up and walk. Matthew 9, 5 through 7, Mark 1, 31, Mark 2, 9 through 12, Mark 9, 27, and Acts 3, 7. Forgiven indicates that perhaps the illness was connected with sin, and the prayers of the elders could bring spiritual healing as well. Pray one for another echoes the prayers of the elders, and these should lead to both physical and spiritual healing, i.e. forgiveness. Prayer is not a magical incantation or a guarantee of healing, but when offered fervently by a righteous person, God will respond in a way that best fits his good purposes. James cited a biblical personality, Elias, who prayed effectively in 1 Kings 17:1, 1 Kings 18:41 through 46. The illustration is intended to encourage his audience that their prayers could lead to similar results. Brethren, if any of you do err from the truth, and one convert him, let him know that he which converted the sinner from the error of his way shall save a soul from death and shall hide a multitude of sins. 19 through 20. James turned to the priority of reclaiming those who had strayed from the faith. To convert is an effort to bring a straying believer back to an authentic Christian faith and lifestyle. Shall hide a multitude of sins probably refers to God's forgiveness in Psalms 32:1, Psalms 85:2.